This quick hit is about Chapter 2, being mindful and your social styles. The one thing I want you to ask yourself is, what does it mean to be mindful? When we talk about being mindful, a person who is mindful or a leader who is mindful is aware of their thoughts, their actions, and their motivations. Essentially, they think before they act. How many times have you been in a situation in which you were at work, or maybe in a leadership position, or maybe as a follower, or perhaps you were in an interview, and someone said something they probably shouldn't have said, or they immediately regretted it? A true leader in a leadership role in an organization will be mindful of those around them. They're aware of what they can say, what they can't say, what they should say, or the reasoning behind saying whatever it is that they've said. They're staying conscious of how they communicate with others, especially people on their team, and how other people communicate with them. When you talk about being mindful, a leader will use this to their advantage, noting how other people are communicating with them, whether they're short, whether they're very succinct, or whether they're very long-winded. And when I say long-winded, in a sense, I'm talking about the followers of that organization or the employees of that organization. If they're long-winded, that means they have stuff to say, probably getting stuff off of their chest or stuff that they've always wanted to tell you as a leader. So you're mindful of this situation and you're understanding, I need to change my communication style in order to get more out of my followers, or I need to change my communication style so that my followers see what it is that I'm trying to get out of them, and that we can have accurate and successful communication. You're also mindful as a leader of the organizational culture. One of the things I want you to go back to the discussion board to answer is this question. Is the organizational culture stagnant, or does it always change? If you don't know what stagnant means, Google it, look it up. But is it stagnant, or is it always changing? And how does that impact you as a leader being mindful? So I want you to answer that question on the discussion board. Not only that, a leader is mindful about being ethical, the ethics that go along with being a leader. When we talk about being ethical, first things first, you have to understand what ethical issues are going on within your culture. You also have to understand what ethical issues apply to your leadership style. Think about this. Ethics could transfer from the follower to the leader, but more often than not, the leader has an ethical code and the follower may have an ethical code as well. And you may be thinking to yourself, well, shouldn't their ethics be the same? Shouldn't the ethics of the follower be the same as the ethics of the leader? And the one thing you should realize, there's really no rules or laws regarding ethics. What some people believe to be ethical, others may not. But you have to apply this to your position, your leadership position, and ask yourself, how can I stay ethical as a leader to where it's not going to get me in trouble, as well as not get my organization in trouble as well? But the question becomes, what's your social style? If you look on page 29 of your textbook, there are two primary dimensions in your social style, that being assertiveness and that being responsiveness. We know people who are assertive, they tend to make requests, they tend to actively agree or disagree. They can be both positive and negative by communicating personal feelings. Essentially, they are assertive in their communication style. Whereas responsive person, or person who demonstrates responsiveness, typically is a little bit more reserved, but they're reserved for a reason. They're more likely listening to what's going on, listening to the problems, and then responding accurately after the fact. There are four social styles: the amiable social style, analytical, driver, and expressive. People who are amiable typically are a relationship specialist, meaning they're high responsiveness, low assertive. They provide service. So as several of you mentioned that you're going into human resources, you're probably amiable in that sense that you're high in responsiveness and low in assertiveness. The analytical is low responsiveness, low assertiveness. An analytical person is very technical. When you talk about analytical, these are your science people, your engineering people, your construction workers. And the reason being, they're probably a little bit apprehensive about communicating with others, and they're a little bit more withdrawn, a little bit more quiet. These people are probably, if you're analytical, if you fall into this category, you're probably a little bit uncomfortable with communicating with others because you may not trust your effectiveness when it comes to communication. The driver is the social style of a driver. They're kind of a control specialist, and that's not necessarily a negative thing, but drivers typically are independent. They could be dominating, they could be tough, they make decisions, they're low responsiveness, high assertiveness. Typically, people who are drivers are politicians, maybe administrators, maybe top managers or regional managers, CEOs. The reason they are drivers is because these people love to take responsibility and they love to direct other people. They like to be that person that's directing everything. Whereas the expressive person, they are a social person. He or she is very, very social in what they do. They love to express themselves, typically maybe an artist, maybe in the entertainment industry, not necessarily a famous person, but they're high responsiveness, high assertiveness. And the thing about the expressive person, they know how to use their communication style to get people to perform. They know how to use their communicative style or communication style to get things done. So I believe one of the discussion questions is to look on page 31 of your textbook and take the identifying your social styles assessment. So I want you to do that to see if you're amiable, analytical, a driver, or expressive.